Xbox is raising the price of their hardware and their accessories, and it seems like this hasn't happened at all at all, not even once in the game industry, except that the other two major platforms have done it in the last couple weeks. But the reaction seems just a hair different. Let's talk about it. I have some thoughts. So here is one of the many articles that are coming out today about Microsoft raising the price of all Xbox Series consoles, and their games will be jumping in price as well this holiday. Um, Lots of coverage on this. This one's IGN. If you scroll down here, it's we've got some significant jumps in the cost of things. We have the base Xbox Series S going from 299 to 380. We have the regular Series X with a disc going from 500 to 600. The special edition 2 terabyte Series X going from 600 to 730. Um, it's not great. This is tough. The reporting on this has been interesting. So this comes right on the heels of Xbox putting out their quarterly earnings report, showing that they've had a really good quarter. They're making more money than ever. Their console sales are down, but that's been expected because they haven't really pushed their consoles that hard anyways. Apparently their consoles are hard to find, that they're not even in stock in a lot of places. And they've put such an emphasis on Game Pass, play anywhere, putting their games on other platforms. That the console thing didn't seem like that big of a deal, and it still doesn't, at least not to me, someone who's been paying really close attention to this and who is an Xbox fan. This obviously isn't great. You don't want to see 5 years after a console comes out it getting more expensive than the day it released. That's not great. But the reporting's been interesting because this pretty much this exact same thing has happened in the last month with both Nintendo and PlayStation. For Nintendo, they revealed their Switch 2 at $450. 50% higher price than the Switch, right? There's all the conversation in defense of that, saying, "Well, it's the next gen, blah blah blah." It I think it's arguable that that's not true. I think that the Switch 2 very much is the Switch Pro that should have been released 2 or 3 years ago for $350. But Nintendo's smart. They're business savvy. They don't release games until the previous demand until dies down, until there's the best possible opportunity for their next product. And in this case, and there's been rumors for years now that the Switch 2 could have been a Switch Pro and could have come out years ago, but they sat on it until the Switch sales dropped enough. That's why they've sold 130 million Switches plus, or I think it's even higher than that now. And that's why they never have to discount games, and they can make all these terrible decisions with the way they handle stuff, and people are still going to buy 100 plus million units. The $450 price of the Switch 2 is a jump in price, and I would argue an unnecessary one. We've seen PlayStation do it just 2 weeks ago, announced that in basically every territory or every major Western territory, besides the United States, they jumped their prices on all their consoles as well. The disc versions, I believe, didn't, but the discless did. It was a weird thing that they did, but it was there and it happened. And there was reporting on it, and there was reporting on Nintendo too, but it was mostly defense. And the reporting on this has been really interesting because it's not. This has been, I mean, you look at the first line of this Microsoft is raising prices on Xbox by a lot. This author didn't report on the PlayStation price jumps. And the person who didn't give their own opinion on it like they are here. This shouldn't be surprising. Is this tariffs? Is it greed? Probably a little bit of both, let's be honest. Um, but it's the way it's going to go, and it's what's happening now. All three major platforms are significantly more expensive than they were 5 years ago, and I have a lot of thoughts about that, so let's get into those. I think the bulk of my thoughts on this are just how concerned I am about how gaming was once this like affordable hobby for kids and adults and for everyone, and I feel like it's becoming so much more normalized now for adults to play games. I hope so. I'm, getting closer to the 40 than 30, and I still play games quite a bit. I do it on my own time. I have lots of other responsibilities. I have a family, I have a job, I have, other things I have going on, but I almost always find time to play games, right? And that's because I care about it. And, that's why I spend my money on instead of going out and doing some other things. So, that has always been cool because it's always been pretty affordable, and that's not happening. We have PlayStation and Xbox are both raising prices, and I know that PlayStation hasn't raised them in the US yet. After Xbox does this, they're going to let Xbox take the hit from the PR perspective for a month or two here, and they're absolutely going to raise prices in the US as well. Why wouldn't they? In the Nintendo, I've already talked about that. This is interesting because to me, it almost seems like an experiment to a point. I'm sure there's market reasons for this, industry reasons for this to a point, but now we're in a situation where the Xbox Series X and the PS5 and the PS5 Pro are all from $500 to $600 to $700 or more. And what I think this is these, especially those two platforms, at this point, they've probably sold the majority of the units they're going to sell in this generation. We already have the rumors about Xbox potentially releasing new hardware as soon as 2026, more than likely 27, and then PlayStation probably being on a similar track. And if you don't think that they're looking right now to kind of see where pricing is going to be on those, you're crazy. They're definitely already figuring that out. We have rumors that Xbox has already finalized the hardware they're going to use for the next one. They know what it's going to be, so they're already trying to figure out that cost stuff. And we've already seen PlayStation confirm they're using AMD, which almost certainly means they've probably decided on the hardware they're using as well, even if that console is a year and a half, 2 years away, right? It's very likely, in my opinion, the next Xbox and the next PlayStation will very likely be $700, $750 or more. And what's so interesting about that, if you bring that up or you talk about it, you're instantly going to have the people say, "Oh, why would you ever pay that much for a console where you could make a PC for way less and you can upgrade that PC over the years and all that?" And I think there used to be a more real argument there. I have a PC. I have a really nice PC, honestly, or at least for me, it's nice. It's probably worth, a decent amount of money. But the problem is right now, we just had the 5060 series for NVIDIA get revealed and released. And it's as much, if not more, that is the lowest tier, the base tier graphics card for PC, for NVIDIA, for new, that you can get. And it's the same price, if not more, than these upped prices on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. And that's not to consider that you still have to buy a bunch of other parts. Your CPUs aren't going to be cheap. Your memory is decently cheap now, but it's not that cheap, especially with tariffs and everything. Motherboard, memory, case, Windows license, if you're doing it the right way, quote unquote. And then you have to have the knowledge of how to do it. Being a PC owner isn't simple. It's hard. You have to do a lot of troubleshooting. Maybe you get lucky. You put it together, install Windows, and you never have a single issue. That's not my experience, and I know what I'm doing, and most people don't. So, I would have a hard time recommending anything under a $1,500 PC to someone right now, and that's if you build it yourself. If you're going to buy off the shelf from, Dell or HP or one of the CyberPower or whatever, you're looking at a premium there. They're going to charge more than what you could build yourself. So you're looking at $1,700, $2,000 for a similar PC that I would recommend. And then, you could upgrade it. Well, is someone who's buying an off the shelf PC going to feel comfortable upgrading it ever? Are they going to know how? Are they going to know what to upgrade to? Sure, they could learn, but the average person won't. So we're going to run into this situation in the next 2 or 3 years, I think, where, the base PC that I would even recommend someone get is going to be like $2,000. And then they're going to release these new consoles and they're going to look like a bargain at under $1,000. But that's not going to be a bargain for people because people's spending power probably isn't going to be much higher. It may be lower depending on what the economic situation is. So it's just, and that's not even getting into games being more expensive. Game Pass is almost certainly going to jump in price sooner than later. I am currently looking and trying to find deals on Game Pass Ultimate cards to try to get ahead of it. And even you can only push out your Game Pass so long, and so I've thought about pushing out as far as I can at current pricing, and then buying extra cards to just have codes waiting. So as my time expires, I can re-up it for what it costs today, because they're gonna raise the price on Game Pass. There's no doubt, and it's still gonna be a great deal. If you're someone like me who plays multiple Game Pass games a month, then it would have to get pretty expensive for it to no longer be a good deal, at least for me. That's not the case for everybody. So it's weird. It sucks. It's just the way it is. Everything's getting more expensive. That's a whole different conversation for the world in general. But for the gaming sphere that I cover, this is tough. I do wish that coverage of it felt a little more fair and balanced, as I don't think it does. I think that there's a lot of bias here in the way that different platforms get treated, but that's just the way it is, and that's okay because it's not going to change. Just try to be a educated consumer of content and products. And if you want to hear more about me talking about this stuff, talking about Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, gaming news in general, please consider subscribing to the channel. Become a YouTube member if you want to help support everything I do. Check out the links in the description for other ways to support and links to the other things I am doing, like my podcast. But that's all I have for this one. So until next time.